Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to provide you my stock price prediction for Sofi stock for the year 2030. So you might be surprised at the number I provide you in this video. It's a pretty shocking number. So I'm going to need a few estimates and assumptions to make this stock price prediction. And remember, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. I'm just using the numbers I have at my disposal to make a forecast for where I think Sofi stock price could be. Now remember, I recently upgraded Sofi stock to a buy because of the company's upgraded earnings forecasts, which we're going to see in this video as well. So without further ado, let's jump into this stock price prediction for Sofi stock.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
Alright, so one of the numbers I'm going to need is Sofi's current share price, which is right now trading at $7.19 per share as of this recording. I'm also going to need Sofi's price to earnings forward ratio. Right now it's trading at a forward PE of 41.71, which recently it jumped up from 25 in recent weeks. Now that's likely because of a change in the earnings per share estimates going forward. Because Sofi's stock price hasn't changed all that much. What likely changed is a few Wall Street analysts change their Sofi stock earnings per share forecast, which I'm not basing my analysis in this video on Wall Street analyst estimates. I do make those estimates sometimes, but in this case, since I have numbers provided by Sofi management itself, I'm using those numbers instead, and I'm going to share that with you here. So the numbers I'm going to use are provided by Sofi. Sofi in their latest quarter said they were going to drive between 55 cents and 80 cents in earnings per share in 2026. And beyond that, they're going to grow earnings per share by about 20 to 25% beyond 2026. So I'm going to use the highest numbers in this estimate. So my estimate might look optimistic to begin with, but I'm going to adjust that a little bit downward to account for the fact that I'm using the 80-cent number here and the 25% growth rate number here. And given that those are on the higher end of the estimates that Sofi's management team itself provided, I could have went with the midpoint of these two estimates and then taken that number, but I chose to go with the higher end and then adjust the number downward at the end of the analysis. So now that we have those numbers, if I was to plug them in here, let me draw your attention to the left hand side here first. The earnings per share of 80 cents in 2026 I got from Sofi management, like I just shared with you earlier, and the growth rate of 25% I also got from Sofi management. Now, if I want to make a stock price prediction for the year 2030 using the forward price to earnings ratio, I need to get the earnings per share for the year 2031. So I forecasted out earnings per share using that 25% growth rate out to 2031, and I get an earnings per share of $2.44 for 2031. Now, let me draw your attention to the right hand side here. The earnings per share of $2.44, if we multiply that with the PE forward of the current price of 41.71, Sofi stock price could exceed $100. In fact, it could be $101.83 per share by the year 2030. That's a pretty shocking number indeed, and that's what I meant in the headline of the video and the beginning of the video when I said you might not believe this shocking Sofi stock price prediction. A $101 stock price prediction would be a more than 10x increase from the current share price of $7.19 per share. And Sofi stock investors would certainly be thrilled with that result. However, I will say that's not my base case scenario. That's not the scenario that I think is most likely. Now, I think the PE forward is going to drop going forward. And if it drops to 30 and the earnings per share estimate stays the same, Sofi stock price could be $73.24 by 2030. Again, a nearly 10x increase from here. If the PE forward falls to 20, the stock price could rise to $48 per share, a nearly 7x increase from where the price is today. And again, I think SoFi stock investors would be thrilled with that result. If the PE forward was to fall to 415 and the stock price could rise to $36.62, which would be roughly a 5x increase from where the stock price is today. Again, I think SoFi stock investors should be happy with even that return, which is the lowest among the estimates I've suggested here in this scenario analysis. Unfortunately, my base case scenario is below this. I think the growth rate of earnings per share is going to come in a little bit lower. I would say about 22.5%. And the earnings per share that we're starting with, instead of 80 cents, should be closer to 70 cents there. And I also think the forward PE is going to drop. And I think the lower end of this estimate is where SoFi stock price will end up by the year 2030. So if you were to ask me where I think SoFi stock price will be, my base case scenario, or the scenario that I think is most likely for SoFi stock, is somewhere in the range of $27 per share to $30 per share by the end of 2030. Now, that would be a significant increase from where it is today. That would be a nearly 4x increase from where the stock price is today at $7.19. And if I was a SoFi stock investor, which I am not, I recommend the stock as a buy, but I don't own SoFi stock, I would be happy with a 4x return on an investment for the next, roughly 6 years or so between now and 2030. That's a solid return on investment for a stock like SoFi. Even though it is an above average risk stock, still getting a 4x return on investment would be quite remarkable on this investment. So I would be happy with that return. And that's partly why I recommend SoFi stock as a buy, because of these earnings per share prospects and the current valuation. I think the risk versus reward is attractive for SoFi stock, even though, I'm basing this analysis on the lower case scenarios here. I know there's a lot of other SoFi stock people that cover SoFi stock on YouTube that are much more optimistic on SoFi stock, and their price predictions are probably much higher than mine. But I tend to base my analysis on numbers and realistic price targets, and not based on momentum, enthusiasm, hype, and other psychological factors that I notice some other YouTubers might focus more on. I tend to focus more on the fundamental factors like revenue and profit and cash flow and valuation multiples. I like to ground my investment decisions on those factors instead of those psychological factors that, for me, are more difficult to predict. So I would be thrilled with this kind of rate of return if I owned SoFi stock. And this is where I think SoFi stock price will be by the end of 2030. So that's my shocking SoFi stock price prediction for 2030. Before I let you go, let me tell you about the greatest deal on YouTube. With just a click of a button, you can get free financial analysis from a professor with decades of investing experience. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.